The Trump administration arrested a federal judge in Wisconsin who was accused of hiding an illegal alien from the feds as they were trying to detain him. Outrage has erupted. Some Democrats are saying this is fascism, that Trump is crossing the Rubicon by arresting Judge Hannah Dugan. For a number of reasons, this is not the case. But let's back up. What exactly did this judge do?
This guy was in court being prosecuted by a state prosecutor for domestic violence battery. He had beat up two people, a guy and a girl, hit the guy 30 times, knocked him to the ground, choked him, beat up a woman so badly they both had to go to the hospital. And John, you know, it's so rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave. While a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
That's Pam Bondi, Trump's attorney general. While many on the left are decrying this as a dangerous watershed moment for federal overreach, there's a precedent for judges getting arrested for allegedly breaking the law, particularly in cases that are as egregious as this. Back in 2020, Reuters did a comprehensive review of cases of judicial misconduct and found 1,509 cases from the last dozen years in which judges resigned, retired, or were publicly disciplined following accusations of misconduct. In addition, reporters identified another 3,613 cases from 2008 through 2018 in which states disciplined wayward judges but kept hidden from the public key details of their offenses, including the identities of the judges themselves. It's perfectly legal and required, actually, to arrest a judge when he or she breaks the law. I think it was Joe Biden who said, "No one is above the law." Reminder that a few months later, Biden pardoned his son Hunter for a bunch of crimes covering nearly 11 years of offenses against the US, influence peddling, all that jazz. But back to the original story, the law is clear. States and localities can say the federal government has no right to commandeer us for something that is a federal matter. That's well and good. That's where sanctuary city policies come from in places like Chicago and Los Angeles, though they are very unfortunate. But no one can obstruct ICE's efforts. And the evidence so far shows that Judge Hannah Dugan, a Democrat, by the way, did obstruct ICE. So ICE shows up to the courtroom where the illegal alien, Eduardo Flores-Ruiz, is having a hearing. This is from the criminal complaint against the judge. I will paraphrase how the events transpired. After showing ID and badges, a shift sergeant with Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office asked that any arrests wait until after the hearing before Judge Dugan. As this was standard practice, a deportation officer and CBP officer agreed and they were allowed to proceed unescorted to the public hallway outside the courtroom. An FBI agent told the courtroom deputy that they were there to help ICE arrest Flores-Ruiz, and they agreed that the arrest would take place after his court appearance. The agents then left the courtroom and they took positions at different locations in the hallway. From the moment Judge Dugan learned that ICE agents were in the courthouse, she apparently insisted they did not have the authority to arrest Flores-Ruiz. Dugan and another judge approached members of the arrest team in the hallway. Witnesses uniformly reported that Judge Dugan was visibly upset and had a confrontational, angry demeanor. Dugan addressed the deportation officer and asked if they were there for a court appearance. When he said no, Dugan said that they'd need to leave the courthouse. But then the deportation officer said they were there to do an arrest, and Dugan asked if he had a warrant, a judicial warrant. The deportation officer said, "No, I have an administrative warrant." Judge Dugan stated that he needed a judicial warrant. And he said, actually, he was in a public space, he had a valid immigration warrant. Dugan asked to see the administrative warrant, and he showed it to her. But then Judge Dugan said that he had to speak with the chief judge. So the deportation officer finds the chief judge, who tells him arrests can happen in the hallway, which is a public place, so ICE is ready to go. They're preparing for the arrest, and they have the green light to do so from multiple people within the courthouse, including the chief judge. Meanwhile, Judge Dugan is up to some shenanigans. The courtroom deputy then saw Judge Dugan get up and heard her say something like, "Wait, come with me." Dugan knows, at this point, ICE has a warrant for this illegal alien's arrest. But then, Judge Dugan escorts the illegal alien out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. This was strange because, according to the courtroom deputy, only staff and people in custody use that door. Defendants who were not in custody never use that door. Remember, the feds already agreed with the sergeant to arrest this guy after his court appearance, and the fact that they didn't immediately, the moment they saw him, doesn't mean that the judge had permission to sneak a wanted criminal out the back door. So Judge Dugan allegedly helped an illegal alien evade the feds. But it didn't work because the feds found him outside the courthouse, chased him down, and arrested him anyway. The Trump Department of Homeland Security and White House obviously are taking no prisoners on illegal immigration. They've used bold visuals and PR to make the point that this is an aggressive effort that they won't stop until, well, we don't know. I mean, even this week, inside the White House briefing room, there was a packet of 100 ICE arrests made on every briefing room chair. So they're sending a clear message. Like Democrats' recent attempts to make a saint out of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an alleged gangbanger, domestic abuser, human trafficker, who was sent to El Salvador, they're also glossing over that this guy allegedly punched someone 30 times and then hit a woman. 3 counts of battery, domestic abuse, and infliction of physical pain or injury. Quote, Flores-Ruiz was accused of playing music too loudly in the home. The complaint alleges Flores-Ruiz punched another person 30 times, then struck a woman who tried to break up the melee. But now Democrats are also making the judge the martyr, calling this authoritarianism from the Trump admin. The courts are sacrosanct now, apparently, to Democrats. Although I do seem to recall them calling the Supreme Court illegitimate because it has a conservative majority. But the facts show that Judge Dugan was way out of line. She could be found guilty of subverting federal law, and it's frustrating that people think she's untouchable because she's a judge. The courts all around this country are making it difficult as possible, for Trump to implement his agenda on immigration, on which he has a mandate from the American public.
You know what I find amazing? How much lawlessness is coming out of the judiciary right now. This Democratic judge in Wisconsin, she sheltered an illegal alien, which is illegal obstruction. She hid him from ICE. So what other evidence do we need that these are not arbiters of the law? These are not interpreters of the law. These are activist judges who would willingly sell out our country.
Another Wisconsin judge is threatening not to hold court in protest of Judge Dugan getting prosecuted. Monica Isham, a circuit judge in Sawyer County, wrote in an email to other state judges that she has, quote, no intention of allowing anyone to be taken out of my courtroom by immigration and customs enforcement agents and sent to a concentration camp. The Trump administration is being bold on the border and also birth policy. It recently announced a proposal on natalism. They're promoting childbearing and child-rearing in this country with supposedly a $5,000 cash incentive to new moms. But this is a bit of a debate on the conservative side. For more on that debate, click here.